They keep telling you to find your people, to surround yourself with support, to stay connected. But what if I told you that the people around you are the very thing holding you back? What if I told you that your power doesn't grow in the crowd? It grows in silence. It grows in isolation. It grows in the cold. You weren't born to blend in. You were born to build something different. And you don't build empires in comfort. You build them when no one's watching, when no one believes, when you're alone and the only voice left is yours. This is where power starts, not in applause, not in praise, but in the tension between who you are and who you refuse to be anymore. Alone strips away the lies. It takes the comfort, the distraction, the fake identity, and forces you to look in the mirror with nothing to hide behind. It's brutal, but it's necessary, because real power is not given. It's earned in the moments no one sees. You don't find yourself when you're surrounded. You find yourself when you're stripped. When you're alone, you stop pretending. There's no one to impress, no one to lie to, just you and the truth. You realize how much time you've wasted playing roles for people who never even knew who you really were. You realize how quiet your hunger got when you were busy being liked, how soft your fire became when you kept asking for permission to burn. But that ends here, because alone you remember. You remember what you wanted before the noise, before the doubt, before the world told you to settle. You remember the beast inside you, the one that doesn't ask, the one that doesn't beg, the one that takes. But to unleash it, you have to cut ties, with comfort, with approval, with everything that made you forget who you are. That's why the path to power starts in isolation, because in solitude you see clearly, you feel deeply, you suffer honestly, and through that pain you sharpen. Power isn't found, it's forged, and forging requires fire, heat, pressure, solitude. You start realizing solitude isn't silence. It's structure, it's discipline. It's the battlefield where your old self dies and your new self takes shape. There's no one to save you here, no one to carry you. That's the point. It forces you to build your own strength, to speak your own truth, to stand even when your legs shake. That's where respect is born, not from others, from yourself. You stop chasing comfort. You start chasing clarity. You stop needing motivation. You start creating momentum. You move different, not because you want attention, but because you've seen what's on the other side of isolation, and you're not going back. You train harder, think deeper, cut faster. You start subtracting people, excuses, distractions. You remove everything that doesn't push you forward, and what's left is lethal. That version of you is what they're not ready for. That version of you is what only solitude can shape. If you're ready to stop being average, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Power doesn't wait, and neither should you. People talk about growth, but they never mention the cost. They want power, but they don't want isolation. They want strength, but not the silence that builds it. The truth is ugly. You don't become powerful by being surrounded. You become powerful when you survive without needing anyone. That kind of solitude reprograms you. It resets your values. It purifies your vision. You stop needing opinions. You stop looking for applause. You stop shrinking your voice to fit their comfort. Instead, you get ruthless. Ruthless with your time, your energy, your focus. You learn to say no. You learn to walk away. You learn to choose yourself without guilt. That's not arrogance. That's self-respect. And self-respect is the foundation of real power. Most people fear being alone because they're addicted to noise, addicted to being needed, addicted to being seen. But the strongest version of you was never meant to be seen by everyone. It was meant to be built in private and unleashed when the world least expects it. So if you're alone right now, good. Stay there. The transformation has already started. The real ones don't need the crowd to become great. They disappear. They vanish into the silence, and when they return, they're unrecognizable, because something changes when you go off the grid. You stop reacting, you start refining, you stop chasing, you start attracting, not people, not praise, but results, respect, unshakable identity. When you're alone, you're not surviving, you're sculpting, carving out the softness, sharpening the edges. You don't rise by accident. You rise because you chose the cold instead of the crowd. You chose pain instead of comfort. And now, you don't flinch. Not when people leave. Not when plans fall apart. Not when life hits, because solitude didn't just train your mind, it trained your reaction, it rewired your response. Now you move with intention, not emotion. They see the calm, they don't see the chaos you conquered to create it. You don't need to prove your strength, you embody it. Every scar earned in silence, every step taken without applause. And that's the power they can't fake, because no one can copy what was built in the dark. The silence doesn't scare you anymore, it sharpens you. While they chase comfort, you chase clarity. While they post about work, you do it. While they talk about purpose, you live it. Alone taught you how to show up, even when no one's watching. Especially then. You stopped waiting for motivation. You became the machine. No fuel from others, only fire from within. You used to seek connection. Now you seek precision. You used to need company. Now you need nothing but your goal. That shift, that's the line between average and unstoppable. You started measuring life differently, not in likes, not in attention, but in discipline, in silence, in the weight of promises you kept to yourself. You stopped making noise, started making impact. Stopped explaining your mindset, started enforcing it. You became the kind of person no one can control because you don't depend on anyone, not emotionally, not mentally, not spiritually. You've turned isolation into independence, and independence into influence. And now the ones who once ignored you, they wonder how you did it. But they'll never understand, because they never stayed long enough in the dark to see the light you built. Power isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't beg to be seen. It just is. And you've become it. Not because someone taught you, because solitude forced you to face your weakness, to sit with your shadow, to rebuild your identity without influence, without noise, without help. Most will never understand that level of strength because they never had to create themselves from nothing. They always had someone to lean on. You didn't. You couldn't. And that's why you're different. You've learned to control your emotions, not broadcast them. To calculate, not react. To walk alone and not break. That's not coldness. That's command of your mind, of your life, of your mission. Now you see things others miss. Weakness in their eyes, fear in their voice, and all the ways they gave up on themselves without even knowing it. But you chose fire. You chose stillness. You chose to become what no one else had the guts to become. And the more time you spend alone, the more unstoppable you get. Not because it gets easier, but because you get harder. And now you're almost there. Now you know. Solitude was never the enemy. It was the test, the forge, the initiation. Most people fail it. They need noise. They need eyes on them. They need someone to tell them they're enough. You didn't. You became enough in the dark, without applause, without shortcuts, without help. That's why your power is real, because you earned it alone. You didn't just survive the silence, you owned it. You turned absence into strength, pain into focus, loneliness into identity. And now you carry that silence with you like a weapon. You don't explain yourself. You don't beg to belong. You don't need to be understood. Because power doesn't ask to be invited. It walks in unannounced and takes its place. The world isn't ready for you, but that's the point. They weren't supposed to be. Now let me ask you directly, when no one believes in you, when it's just you and the dark, what do you do? Drop it in the comments. I want the real answer, not the polished one, not the fake one, the one that keeps you alive when no one's watching.